Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Mr. White here with your second video lecture of this school year. Now, today's lecture is going to be all about Greek and Roman art and architecture. So, just like the last lecture, you need to take good notes as we go, and at the end you're going to have to take a short video quiz on Moodle. So make sure that you remember to sign into Moodle, take your video quiz, it's for a daily grade. Okay, so as you may or may not know, here in the USA we live in a civilization which has been heavily influenced by the culture and the ideas of these two classical civilizations, the Greeks and the Romans. You may not even be aware of it, but the legacy of the Greeks and Romans is all around us. Many of our most revered national monuments and public buildings, like in Washington, D.C., such as the Lincoln Memorial, the Supreme Court, and even the Capitol building, were all designed to carefully mimic the aesthetic trends pioneered by the great civilizations of the past. Today we'll explore the basic characteristics and design elements which are most typical of the classical Mediterranean style. So, for the sake of keeping things in order, let's start where it all began, the Greek city-states. First of all, to understand Hellenic art and architecture, you need to understand Greek philosophy. The great Greek philosophers such as Socrates and Plato stressed the importance of harmony, balance, order, and clarity of thought. These things represented man's mastery over the chaotic natural world. Therefore, creating temples and art to exemplify these principles was important to the Greeks as a symbol of humanity's special status in the eyes of the gods. Greek architecture is also highly mathematical because the Greeks believed that mathematics were a form of universal truth, created by the gods. Therefore, the key to creating beauty in building design was mathematics. Greek temples are always twice as long as they are wide, and generally they housed a large statue of one or more of the Greek gods in the center. These design principles went on to influence the building style of the Romans and most other Western European nations. The most famous example of the Greek building style is the Parthenon, located on the Acropolis in Athens. The Parthenon was dedicated to the goddess Athena, the most important deity of this city which bears her name. In ancient times, there was a massive statue of Athena made from gold and ivory located in the sanctuary of the temple. After nearly 2.5 millennia, the statue is long gone and the temple lies in ruins. Don't let its current drab appearance fool you. In ancient times, this building would have been painted in brilliant colors. The friezes, or carvings, across the front of this triangular roof depict scenes from Greek mythology. The most iconic feature of this style of architecture is the vertical columns that surround the structure. Nearly every important temple or public building in the classical world includes this design element. Greek columns can be divided into 3 main orders based on how they look at the top. The oldest style is called Doric. You can recognize Doric columns by their relatively simple square top. The Parthenon uses this style of column. The next style of column to come along is the scroll-topped Ionic column. The newest style is called the Corinthian column, which is distinguished by its intricate leaf and scroll pattern near the top. An easy way to remember the order of these styles of columns is that the older they are, the fewer syllables are in the name. For example, Doric is the oldest, Ionic is the second oldest, and Corinthian is the newest. Greek architects also pioneered the classical design of open-air theaters. Greek people loved to watch comedies and tragedies. They even thought of watching plays as a very healthy type of therapy, known as catharsis. Nearly every Greek city-state built theaters to entertain their citizens. Many of these theaters were built into hillsides, almost like terrace farms, to ensure that everyone in the audience could easily see the action on stage. The naturally mountainous geography of Greece created the perfect environment for this type of theater. The semicircular shape of Greek theaters also made for improved acoustics, since there were no microphones to amplify the dialogue on stage. Hellenic culture is also known for creating highly detailed sculptures and distinctive pottery. Greeks used these forms of expression to endorse and exemplify the virtues of their culture. For example, Greeks believed that the Olympian gods had human bodies, so many of their statues depict them as humans with perfect physiques and faces. Most of these statues are nudes because the Greeks believed that the body, especially the male body, was a thing of beauty. To create the illusion of action, sculptors created folds and ripples in the material worn by their subjects and placed the statue's balance on one leg, a technique called contrapposto. These statues would later go on to inspire the great sculptors of the Renaissance, such as Michelangelo. Greek artisans also developed a unique style of ceramic pottery for use in homes, markets, and temples. In the early days, Greek pottery was decorated with simple, geometric patterns. As the style evolved, the geometric patterns took a backseat to paintings of scenes from Greek history, mythology, and even sometimes daily life and politics. These ceramics are easily recognized by their limited use of color and ubiquitous scenes of idealized human figures. Much like Greek sculpture, their ceramic designs represented the perfection of the body and mind. Seeking this perfection is at the very core of Hellenic culture and philosophy. As the power of the Greeks began to decline in the 3rd century BC, a brand new power in the Mediterranean began to rise: the Roman Republic. Romans had a deep respect for the intellectual, cultural, and political accomplishments of the Greeks, so they chose to emulate the principles of classical Greek art and architecture in their civilization. In addition to the Greeks, the Romans drew inspiration from the Etruscans, an early civilization from the Italian peninsula. So, now let's examine the characteristics of Roman artistic expression and architectural design. The Romans were known for being prolific builders. Much like the Greeks, they believed that balance, symmetry, and harmony were necessary to produce aesthetically pleasing buildings. The Romans were unique because they went to great expense to create large buildings for public use instead of just temples like the Greeks. This included the first public housing apartments, amphitheaters for public spectacles, and baths for health, socialization, and recreation. The Romans were able to build so much because they mastered the use of a construction material which was rare in the ancient world, yet surrounds us all in the 21st century: concrete. Romans were able to build with concrete because of a geographic blessing in disguise. The Italian peninsula is divided from north to south by a chain of active volcanic mountains. Volcanoes produce a type of rock called pumice. Pumice, also known as pozzolana, is a critical ingredient of Roman concrete. When mixed with water, lime, gypsum, and bits of rubble and crushed rocks, Roman engineers produced this versatile building material. More expensive, decorative stones were usually added to the exterior of concrete structures to improve their final appearance. The use of this strong yet relatively lightweight concrete made it possible for the Romans to create some of the world's first domed buildings, such as the Pantheon in Rome. This was a simple temple built to honor the Roman gods, who were consequently almost identical to the Olympian gods worshipped by the Greeks. Domes are a quintessential element of Roman architecture. Concrete was used in the construction of buildings for public entertainment as well as temples, such as the Colosseum. This amphitheater was constructed in the 2nd century AD by the emperors Vespasian and Titus. Like the Greeks, Roman culture placed emphasis on the importance of entertainment and leisure to one's spiritual health. However, the Romans differed in the type of entertainment they sought. Romans enjoyed blood sports more than theater. Amphitheaters like the Colosseum were designed with this in mind. The arena hosted elaborate athletic competitions, wild animal hunts, mock battles, and gladiatorial duels for the entertainment of up to 50,000 cheering Roman citizens. To show their respect for Greek architecture, all 3 styles of classical columns decorate the facade of the Colosseum. The Colosseum also incorporates an architectural form which is not typically found in Greek buildings: the arch. Romans didn't invent the arch, but they did use it in many structures, including bridges, baths, and of course ceremonial arches. This ceremonial arch marks the entrance to the Roman Forum. It's known as the Arch of Titus. Yeah, the same Titus that had a hand in building the Colosseum. It celebrates the Roman army's victory over Jewish rebels in 70 AD. The frieze shown here depicts Roman soldiers looting Jerusalem. This was known as the Jewish diaspora, when the Jews were expelled from their homeland by the Romans as punishment for rebellion. The naturally dry climate of the Mediterranean inspired engineers to develop unique solutions to provide water for large cities, such as Rome. Special structures, known as aqueducts, were built to channel water from natural springs in the nearby mountains to thirsty citizens of the empire. These aqueducts carried water in lead pipes using only the natural force of gravity. Unfortunately, lead is a toxic metal which causes harm to the central nervous system over time. Some historians have proposed that this may have contributed to shorter lifespans among Roman city dwellers who regularly used water from these aqueducts. Have you ever heard the phrase, "all roads lead to Rome"? Well, if you have, it should come as no surprise for you to learn that aqueducts were not the only man-made structures that crisscrossed the Roman Empire. The Romans were also masters of road construction. Concrete made it relatively cheap for the Romans to construct durable roads to improve transportation, communication, and trade throughout their vast territory. Roman roads were like the internet of the ancient world. Towns and villages located near these vital transportation corridors were connected to the information, business, and cultural exchange of the entire known world. Roman roads were so well built, in fact, that some of them remained in regular use throughout Europe well into the 19th century. Roman artisans produced extremely realistic-looking statues, much like the Greeks. However, Roman statues differed in their style and subject matter. Unlike the ideal, perfect images of gods and heroes, which are typical of Hellenic sculpture, Roman sculptures tend to be more realistic. Roman sculptors included the wrinkles, bulges, and other physical flaws of their subjects. Furthermore, the subjects of Roman sculptures tend to be real people, especially famous politicians, like the emperors. Roman artwork also includes wall paintings, which were commonly used to decorate the inner walls of wealthy people's homes, and mosaics, which are detailed pictures composed of millions of small colored tiles, just like the millions of pixels that make up this image on your screen right now. Like Roman sculpture, these paintings and mosaics depict images of real life that give historians a kind of snapshot of the people who lived in that distant time. Alright everyone, that's just about all you need to know about the art and architecture of the classical Mediterranean civilizations. Now make sure that you remember this information and be prepared to identify and explain examples of it on the test. It's also important to remember the impact that these cultures have had on our society today. So now, when you go out into the world, I want you to look out for examples of these principles that we've been discussing. Things like balance and symmetry in the design of buildings, columns and arches used to decorate our important public spaces, concrete roads, and everyday utensils with images of our favorite superheroes and sports stars. Don't forget to complete your video quiz. Also, remember to bring your notes to class with you because we're going to be using this information to do an in-class activity. So, as I said, do your quiz, it's a daily grade, and we'll see you in class.